Okay. Drip, drip, drip. Drip, drip, drip. That's what the couple heard when they looked up. They looked up at the ceiling and saw that they had a leak. The roof is leaking. That's not something they can wait to fix. Husband called the roofer. Roofer came, and he's making a lot of noise on the roof. The wife said, wait a minute, why is he banging? The leak is on the other side of the house. She looked at her husband and said, what's he doing up there? The leak is on the other side of the house. Why is he banging over here? And the husband looked at her and said, what's the matter with you? Don't you see there's a leak here too? It's been there for over a month. Nobody sees anything in this house. Everybody waits for me. Oh, didn't see that one coming. Where do you think that conversation is going? Down south. Right? Whoa, what's going on with you? Didn't see that one coming. It should have gone south, right? But then the wife remembered that she had to present to you guys on communication today. So she purposely made sure it didn't go south. She said, I said, honey, you're such a great observer. What would I ever do without you? What comeback does he have? He had to laugh, right? Okay, there you go. All right. Short prayer. Heavenly Father, what a wonderful Savior you are. The devil tried so hard to not bring me here this evening. I just ask you to let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight. I'm asking you, Lord, that every person here today leave with just a little nugget, a little more advanced knowledge of their communication styles in terms of their attitudes and behavior, particularly with their loved ones at home. Let them go home with just one new strategy to use to uplift their homes in terms of their communication. Amen. Okay, I want to thank you all for having me this evening. Althea, thank you for that wonderful introduction. She worked with me actually in family life at Plantation years ago. So thank you. Okay, when Althea and I spoke, the title conflict resolution came up. And then I thought about it and I said, no, I don't like to come from a negative perspective. Conflict says we're beginning with a conflict. Conflict in conversation arise, right? Hopefully we don't begin conflictually. So the thought came up, dialogue or debate? Communicating for healthy relationships. How many of you are in relationships? That's a trick question, all of us. I expect everybody to say me. It doesn't just mean couples, okay? And family life means family, everybody. We are all in relationships. As a matter of fact, it tells us of the various roles that we play. We're in a relationship, maybe romantic relationship with our spouses, with our children, our parents, siblings, friends. All these are relationships. Of course, there are different types of relationships where there are some clear boundaries. You go to work, there are things you're not going to say or do with your colleagues that you say at home. Boundaries are less though at home, but even it should be less. And hear me, couples, among couples, because the two of you should be able to be dependent on each other. There shouldn't be that much boundaries between couples. Doesn't mean there aren't any, but it should be less. So I like to deal with definitions. So I looked at in the dictionary. Relationship defined, the way two or more people are connected or the way they behave toward each other. The way in which two things are connected. So connection is a core feature of relationships. We need connection. We have a need for human connection. It actually was shown to us in the very beginning when God created Adam and Eve. In Genesis 2:18, God said, "It's not good for man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him." And I thought of the word helper. What does that mean? I'll make a helper. Doesn't necessarily mean physical help. Could be, but it could also be emotional help. Like when my husband told me, "Didn't you see the thing?" I just pictured him in like a puddle. Try to do that. Just picture him like a puddle, and he's trying to pull me into that puddle while I'm standing on this nice green. So what do? I'm not going to let him pull. Why don't I pull him onto the green grass with me? Right? I say that to tell you that we have choices in the way we respond. But we have to think. You can't just respond without thinking. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. And not too long ago, I had to give a talk at another church on mental health. And as I was talking about Adam and Eve, we hear a lot about mental health these days, right? And a lot of times we don't believe in seeking help for mental health problems. But what's interesting, if you think, God gave me this for the last talk. God said it's good for man, not good for man to be alone. Why? God's going to be there for him. God's always there. He's going to be there for him. He can pray. I'm going to make some animals. Oh, no, but he needs his own species. He needs somebody he can touch and feel and talk, all our senses he can experience with. Because then he won't be lonely. Have you ever been lonely? Talk about mental health. He won't be depressed. That's mental health. God thought about mental health at the very beginning. So when you feel a little low and you think, I need to talk to somebody, don't think there's anything wrong with you. It was thought about at the very beginning. And God said, you need connection. Find somebody you're connected with in a good way, because not everyone is, looking out for you. That was sort of a sidebar. So I have a couple more scenarios. These are not mine, though. When you get to be my age, you sort of have scenarios for everything. So here's one created scenario. So I want you to think about wife to husband. You've been promising to get this plumbing fixed, but as usual, you never do what you say. Husband, what about you? Do you always do what you say? You can call the plumber too. I want you to think about that, because I'm going to come back to it. Here's another one. Child and dad. So it may be a little sexist, I say dad, but it's my case. Child, Dad, I waited for you all day because you promised to take me to the game, but you didn't come. You always break your promises. Dad, I was busy making the money to pay for the things you have. We can always go to another game. Think about it. I would like you, did you give paper and pencil? Or you can think about it. A little exercise for each of you. Because all of us have conflicts. Because I'm up here telling you how to communicate, does that mean I don't have, I told you my story already, right? We all have conflicts. Sometimes we expect the speaker to be perfect, but it's the imperfection that makes us good speakers because we have stories to draw on, okay? So conflict is inevitable. Why? We're all individuals. We're moving in different emotional states. Maybe my husband was thinking of how much he had to pay the roofer. I wasn't thinking about that. Where are you in your emotional state when you are talking to someone? The question you want to ask when you're having a conflict is, am I being heard? Am I being understood? So I just want you to think about, if you have pen and paper, you can write it down. It's your own thing. You can share it later if you want. Just write down a recent scenario where the communication you had with a loved one did not go very well. What was the situation and who was it with? What was your final response? What emotion were you feeling? What was the other party's final response? What were you expecting from your response? Did you get it? How did the situation end? And as you listen to my presentation, I want you to try and pinpoint where any of what I say shows up in your scenario. And if so, how you might change things in the future. Or even go back and say something to the person. So again, a couple more definitions. I see couples in therapy, and every single one of them come in when I ask what brings you here? It's always, we don't know how to communicate. And my response is, we don't communicate well. We don't know how to communicate. The thing is, you do communicate. Not communicating effectively. You are communicating. Dialogue or debate, what's the difference? So I looked that up in the dictionary too. Dialogue can be a noun, which is a conversation between two or more people, exchange of ideas. Or a verb, take part in a conversation or discussion to resolve a problem. There is an aim, all right? Debate is also a discussion. But on the contrary, it's a discussion in which those involved advance reasons for and against some kind of proposal. So you're gonna have, right? You want right and wrong. Or it's a formal contest of argumentation in which two opposing teams defend and attack a given proposition. So I'm giving you some definitions so we can move on. Communication. What does it mean? According to the dictionary, it's sending, giving, or receiving information and ideas. So it can't be just amongst ourselves. It has to be with others, right? In connection with others. There's a sender and the receiver. And within the same conversation, the roles reverse. One becomes the sender, one becomes the receiver. It's necessary in both dialogue and debate. Think about in your conversations with your loved ones, in your discussions, which role do you often play? What do you usually engage in? Dialogue or debate? We communicate in many ways. It's not only verbal, it's nonverbal, behavioral. Worst thing these days is social media, Facebook, Snapchat. Okay, great. Where was I? Yeah, methods of communication. So the person may not say something to you, but they say it in, in their behavior. Growing up in Jamaica as a kid, and I'm sure everybody know, all your parents had to do was what? Just look at you. They don't have to open their mouth. And okay, straighten up. I saw a commercial on television the other day, and I thought, what a rude commercial. It was a young couple, and the girl is eating chips, and the spouse, I believe, came and took the bag of chips, and she made one of these terrible cut eyes. Did anybody ever see that? She just basically, nothing. Cut her eyes, and he ran with they were advertising the chips. So he wanted the chips, and she basically cut her eyes at him. But man, I felt it through the TV. I said, this is not a good commercial. Couldn't they have come up with something else? The communication, it was worse than saying, leave my chips alone. Nonverbal. You have to really think about how you communicate and what it is that you're communicating. So I want you to continue thinking about your scenario. Would you say it was a dialogue, a debate, or a contest of argument? So effective communication. For it to be effective, there must be understanding between the sender and the receiver, sender of the message and the receiver of the message. I'm sure you all have heard, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, emphasizing the importance of listening. You may hear, but are you really listening to what your partner is saying or what the kids are saying? Are you? Caribbean parents have a way of shutting kids down. It may be different now. When I was a kid, they did. Child to parent. Can I go over to John's house after school? Parent, no. Child, why? Because I said so. I don't think they still do it, though. I think they've gotten wiser. Power and control in relationships. That's a power. I was writing a talk one day on power and control and parenting, because parents don't realize how much power the kid has. He or she can drive you nuts. They have a lot of power. So when you think about power and control and shared power, it's about shared power. Okay, let's give and take, let's compromise, because otherwise you will not be able to realize that your kid has probably even more power because of how they can make you behave. So there's usually an attempt to influence each other through communication, through listening, clarifying, coming to an agreement. How might the parent promote understanding with that child? You want to be heard, the child wants to, everybody wants to be heard. Everybody thinks they're right. Again, it's about power and control. And when you think of it, it may be coming from your past. You know, my mother used to say this, or my father, I don't like when this person says it because it reminds me of that. It may be coming from a past relationship. No, it's not going to happen here either. But it's coming from somewhere. So it's really important for you to stop and think, how am I responding? And why am I responding in this manner? When you're having a dialogue, you must know the end game. What outcome are you trying to achieve? What outcome are you looking for? Are you looking to win? Especially with your family, especially with a spouse. Remember, whenever there is a winner, there is what? A loser. So you may win, but the relationship loses. Are you really winning? I remember when I first got married, my husband loves music. And he would buy all these CDs and records. Older now, so we had records. We still have them. And he would line them up on the floor, getting to the ceiling. I'm like, okay. I don't like that. I want things neat. So I went out and bought all these wooden things to put them together myself and got the CDs and felt really good. I organized everything. He came home and I said, ta-da, look. He goes, wow, you did all that yourself? I said, yeah. What I saw was organization. What he saw, I've learned over the years, is more space. Now he has more floor. So it wasn't long before it started piling up again. I'm like, what? So I complained to my mother. She says, dance when he plays the music. Forget about the organization. I'm like, wow. Moms have a lot of knowledge, guys. She said, dance when he put the music on. Forget organizing. And I'm telling you, so winning, losing, what is it that you want? Blocking communication. Pastor McCoy knows this. This is what we talked about. 4 horsemen. I used Gottman, psychologist John and Julie Gottman's approach to working with couples. They talk about communication patterns that predict the end of a relationship. And they use the term 4 horsemen, borrowed from the horseman that predicts the end of time in Revelation. Ask yourself, do I use any of these, and why? And when I do, where does it come from? First one, criticism. An attack on the person's character, personality flaws. You are so selfish. You always do this. You never do this. Words like always and never. Not good. To counteract criticism, the receiver wants to defend themselves. So defensiveness. Usually responds to criticism. Well, you don't do this either. Did you get in touch with the plumber like you said? Defensive response, turning it around on the other person. It reverses the blame. It's like, oh, you're at fault too. It's not just me. The antidote. Just own up to it already. Accept responsibility for it. Okay, honey, I messed up this time. You know what men love too? If you can say to them, you know, I may have some fault in this too. It's not just you. Oh, okay. Try that. I may have some fault in this. It's not just you. Third pattern, contempt, which is putting the other person down, calling them names, looking down your nose at them, eye rolling, making your partner feel worthless. It's an act of moral superiority. According to the Gottmans, this is the greatest predictor of relationship failure. Not treating one another with respect. Same thing with kids. Because they're little doesn't mean we can't respect them, because guess what? We're also modeling behaviors. We're role models. I was counseling a couple years ago. They had a baby that they wanted so long. Baby came, and now they were always fighting. Who's to do what? And there's a lot of cursing. And when I said to them, you have a baby now. You have to think about the way you speak. You can't continue to, oh, but she's young. I said, you'd be surprised what they absorb. I said, so what are you going to do? Wait until she speaks and then you stop? Is that possible? He goes, I don't believe that. We have a friend with, that family, they have the most foul-mouthed people I've ever heard. And they have a child who does not speak like that. And then I have another family, this is the husband talking, who they do not curse one word. And their child, you should hear the words that come out of that child's mouth. I said, okay. So I just went and did some research and sent him a couple of articles. I said, here's the evidence. This is not just me. Here is the evidence. This is what research shows. The kid is going to model your behavior. I said, and if you continue to speak to your wife that way, how is this child going to learn to communicate with their partner? They learn first at home. So we have to think about, what are we teaching them at home? Because that's what they're going to pick up, right? Contempt. And then the last one is stonewalling. Like, they don't speak at all. That can be really cool. Somebody not talking to you. You don't know what they're thinking. They shut down. And sometimes, it's flooding. It's just too much and they don't know what to say. In a good relationship where there's stonewalling, get together and say, okay, can we just take a break right now and come back to this in an hour? But you've got to come back to it. You can't sweep it under the rug. And both people have to agree. That's the thing with relationships. I'm telling you a lot of things, you may do it, and then your partner doesn't believe in any of it. That's frustrating too. So, relationship equipping. Love is a practice. It's not a state. You have to keep doing it. Honey, I really feel good when you fill in the blank. Do you mind helping me doing so and so? When you talk to someone and you say, you are always this, you just, all they're hearing is criticizing them. When you turn it around and say, I feel so and so when you do this, you're talking about their behavior. When you behave in this manner, this is how it impacts me. They hear it differently than you saying, you are bad, you are this, you are that. And it puts you putting yourself on a pedestal. So it's a good idea to think about how that behavior makes you feel and talk to even the kids. This is how we're going to talk from now on, right? What happens when, okay, we'll try to change that. It's not perfect. You're not going to do it all the time. I'm telling you now. I have to remember it too. Okay? I told my husband his ears are going to be ringing because I'll be talking all night about him. Oh, my goodness. Okay, so agree on whether you are engaged in a dialogue or a debate. If it's a debate, then you've decided you're going to have a debate. But if you're having conversations, you're dialoguing, guys. Everyone needs to stop and hear what the other one says. And sometimes you think you hear something and you start responding. Maybe you need to say, wait a minute. Clarify. I'm hearing you say this. Is this what you mean? Is this what you're saying? And think about emotions in your communication. We're all feeling different emotions. Whatever it is you're feeling may not be what the other person is feeling. So we have to think empathy too. Where's this person? Maybe they're just coming home. Again, see, I tell you about myself. Because it helps you to realize that we all, again, when I first got married, long time ago, man, a long time ago, my eldest is 30-something years old. So my husband would come home. We both worked, but somehow I end up having to do everything. I have to come home, take care of the kids, and I just left work. So I remember one day, I don't remember, I picked up the kids. I don't know how many I had at that time. I end up with 4, and I had some big positions in New York, wanting to catch a train, wanting to drop this one at babysitter. And we didn't even have cell phones those days. There were times when I'm crying because I missed the train, and he's all the way in New Jersey, and anyone young having kids, live near your family. You need support. That's not in my thing, but support, very, very important. Luckily, I live near my parents and my sisters, so that was helpful. I went off track, so I don't know what I was saying. Oh, I was telling you a story that he came home, and I don't know what. The school told me about one of the kids, and he came in the house. He was an intern. And I said, oh, thank God you're home. You won't believe what happened. I remember, I can picture, and we're talking over 30-something years ago. At the door, he's taking off his shoes. He's, Victoria, do me a favor. Give me 1 hour when I come in. Give me 1 hour. And I said, nobody gave me an hour. Nobody gave me a minute. Why do you get an hour? He said, well, if you want me to respond to you, you've got to give me an hour. So then I called my mother, and she said, give him an hour. Give him the hour. Okay? The Bible has a lot of wisdom, guys. Proverbs 15:1, a soft answer, harsh words My mother used to say, you get a lot more with honey than vinegar. That's the same thing. Think about the end game in your dialogues. Do you want to have a relationship at the end? If so, must you win? If so, are you prepared to deal with your loved one when they feel they're the loser? It's possible that you're right, but holding on to that may leave you feeling lonely. Accept responsibility for part of the problem. After all, we can't have conflict by ourselves. Everybody has a part to play. It's not all your fault. I messed up too. That's not so hard, right? Especially in marriages. No one knows what goes on between the two of you. It's okay. When I talk about boundaries, it's okay to sort of lay off those boundaries because you're dependent on each other. You should be able to go to your spouse and say what you can't say to somebody else. But it's not true. Not everyone can. What's your philosophy on giving in? Do you interpret it as weakness? As losing? Accept influence from each other. Not powerless if you accept influence from your mate. For peaceful resolution, it's okay to give in. Sometimes. It's okay to give in. Perspective is important. You gotta compromise. Can't be your way all the time. Accept influence when someone says something. Okay, it just cannot always be, you can't always be right. Sometimes when they say, acknowledge when they say something good. Don't turn away from someone when they're trying to, like a bid for connection is what we would call it. A person, the kid making a bid for connection with dad. I want to go. Dad says, oh, I'm busy right now. Kid coming to you, you're coming home from work late. Oh, mom, dad, look at what I found today. Like, okay, Johnny, go watch TV or something. I don't have time. You've got to make time. You've got to make time. Those are such important years. And before you know, leave everything. The house can get cleaned. Never attach weight to what we contribute. Partners will come, spouses, mates. I give 100. This should be 50-50. This is me talking. If you're giving 50%, you're holding back 50. So what are you doing with it? I remember growing up with 4 other siblings. I'm holding back 50 because I'm watching to see, well, is mommy going to have them do it too? Or am I going to be doing everything? But then you're a kid. If you're in a relationship, you've got to give 100%, even if you don't think they're giving it. What did I say? You've got to give 100%. Otherwise, you're holding something back. And guess what? It's going to show up. It's going to show up in your behaviors. It's going to show up in your attitude. Not too long ago, I'm speaking to a woman about her relationship, and she said, he never does anything. I threw him a party. He would never do that for me. I said, did you enjoy the party? She said, yes. I said, so? Just enjoy the party. But I know he does other things for you. He may not be a party planner, but you are. So plan a party. Let him do what he does. I remember years ago working as a clinician in New York. One of my colleagues, American woman, she would say, Vic, your husband doesn't, you don't have him wash the clothes and cook? I said, he doesn't cook and he's not a clothes washer. So what does he do? I said, he does other things. There are other things that he does and he does well. She said, are you kidding? Kevin has to wash the clothes and he has, both of us work. I said, well, when you entered the relationship, you knew what the person was, right? Let him do what he does and do what you do. He does what he does and we complement each other, right? I can't now marry you and say, well, now you're going to have to do this. That's part of the problem with marriage. You can't change people. Don't expect them to change. If they change, it's because they see you and they recognize that you're giving 100%. Trust me, when they see you give, it's like, you know, I need to step up. My partner, I need to step up. Because they know that there are other people out there too watching. Man, you've got a good woman. You better step up. Same thing for the woman. You've got a good man. You need to step up. Give 100%, and your partner will see it. They told me I have a half an hour to 45 minutes. How am I doing? An hour? So never attach a weight. You have to be all in, or you're partly out. Give freely without expecting. It will come. So believe it or not, the Bible tells us everything about relationships. The connection that prepares you for healthy relationships is the relationship or the connection you have with God. If you have that connection, trust me, you're going to give 100%. You're going to compromise. You're not going to criticize. You're not going to be contemptuous because that song you guys opened with, I've never heard that song. What is it? Love in the Home? Love at Home. I'm like, wow, I'm going to use that in my talk. Love at home. Ephesians 4:2. With all humility and gentleness, with patience, bearing with one another in love. Love. Matthew 22. Jewish religious expert asked Jesus, teacher, which is a great commandment in the law? Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment, and the second is like, love your neighbor as yourself. Love at home. What a beautiful song. Unhealthy relationships, God knew we were going to have them. 1 Peter, I think it's Paul who said, finally, all of you, have unity of mind, sympathy, brotherly love, a tender heart, and a humble mind. It's because there was no unity why he's saying, have unity. Come on. Do not repay evil for evil or reviling for reviling, but on the contrary, bless. For to this you were called, that you may obtain a blessing. For whatever desires to love life and see good, let him keep his tongue from evil and his lips from speaking deceit. Let him turn away from evil and do good. Let him seek peace and pursue it. So I'm going to leave you with this. Look for what the other person does right and tell them. I used to counsel kids, and the parent would come in and say, he is this, he is that, she is this, she. And the one question I always asked was, does he or she do anything right? Do they do anything right? And the parent usually, oh, yeah, he does. I said, okay, why not Start there. Start focusing on what he or she, what they do right. Because when you start focusing on the negative, that's how they're going to grow up. And then the relationships I'm talking to you about, that's what they learned about themselves. They were bad. My mom said so. My dad said so. So now I'm going to treat you the way, that's what they told me, I was bad. So be careful what you say to your kids. They hear it. So think about one strategy you've learned here today that you can begin practicing with the goal. There is a goal in effective communication. It's improving your relationship, your connections. Did anyone write down the scenario? Anyone willing to share? You don't have to share. I just want you to think about what it is you did in that scenario. Is there something that you could change or you could have changed? Can you go back and say, you know what? I heard this talk at church and it really got me thinking. I'm sorry. I said so-and-so, I said such and such, and I was wrong. That's not easy to do. It takes a big person, but a godly person. May God bless you. Thank you. Okay, I thought they gave me half an hour, guys. I went over, how long is it, 2 hours? I talk a lot. Yes. Sylvia, thank you for coming.
Yes. Yeah, thanks very much. It's a wonderful presentation. The question that I have, however, you mentioned that if your partner does not give, you need to give 100%. But it's really hard for you to give 100% if your partner is not giving anything. And I think that's why we have so many divorces in our church. Because if everyone decided, I am going to do my part, and I'm going to give 100% if my partner does not give anything, and I think a lot of the marriage that end up in divorce would not be. So I really thank you for that.
Okay, and let me just say, giving 100% is not easy. But you're a human being. You're not going to keep giving, and getting nothing back. There comes a time when you have to say, wait a minute. I was hoping you would see that I'm giving 100%. What are you going to do? You have to have a conversation. You have to have a dialogue. Don't just give. You're not an idiot. Right? Give, but at some point, a good partner is going to see that you're giving, and they're going to step up. If you have to keep telling them, something is definitely wrong. And maybe they're going through issues too. Remember I talked about mental health? Maybe sometimes when we're, like I said, we're all in different emotional states at the same time. I may be feeling sad about something that happened at work that I didn't share with you, and you're feeling angry that I'm not paying attention to you. And we're operating on different emotional states. Maybe we need to stop and say, what's going on with you? I don't feel as though we're connecting. What's happening? Just take a step back. I don't want this to end in this way. I hear people say, oh, we don't go to bed angry. I'm like, really? Tell me how you do it, because I go to bed angry. Okay, you did this. I'm angry. I'm not gonna. It would be nice to not go to bed angry, and I will try. I'll try. It's real talk. I'll try, but you have to try too. Relationship takes two people. One person can't keep trying. Both of you have to be in it. I was meeting with a couple for the first time 2 weeks ago. And one of the things I look for is, are you committed to this relationship? Because if you're not committed, yes, you can be in couples therapy, but it's really to talk about how to dissolve this thing amicably. Commitment. What is commitment? Don't just say yes. And they said yes. And last week, I had an appointment, packed his things and left. But he said he was committed. So what do you mean when you say committed? How committed are you? You've got to go through the rough patches. Life isn't easy. Man, and these days with kids, I'm glad mine are grown. I don't have to deal with social media and bullying online. And, you know, part of my thing is intimate partner violence. There's a lot of dating violence. Little kids committing suicide because of what their friends are saying about them online. It's crazy, guys. They have to have a solid foundation at home to come home to. I'm serious. This is a going off on tangent. They have to have, and you've got to pay attention to them. A lot of young parents these days, I see them, they're worse than the kids. They're on their pads and phone. And the kid is talking, and it's like, okay, Johnny. No. It's relationships. You're communicating when you're not communicating. But what you're communicating is not positive. All right? Other questions? Or comments? That means I was good, because you have no you have no questions. All right. Oh, no, okay. Were you raising your hand? No? Oh, okay. Okay, babe. All right. I'm done. Thank you.
And I'm sure a lot of you did not want to be out here in the rain, but thank you for coming as well. And a lot of us here are married or older people who have been involved in relationships. Well, even if you're not married, we've all been involved in, yes, thank you, in relationships for years. And we're never too old to learn. And we just want to appreciate your efforts in, giving us additional, instructions and tools that we can utilize, because it's a never-ending fight. Nicole always says the struggle is real, and it's a yeah. So even whether you're married, you're single, it's a relationship with your kids, whatever it is, it's always a struggle. Oh God, yes.
Marriage is an everyday situation. Sometimes it's sweet and nice, and the next time it's bitter and rough, right? My wife here, she's a God-blessed woman. She went through it, I can tell you, and she's been here, right? Sometimes we have our up days and our down days. Sometimes she get tight. But like I said, it's an everyday thing. I just hold on. I just hold on. I just put certain things. I just make sure I try my best that she's comfortable. Because without comfort, or sometimes she says she's not contented. I do. I don't say it to her, but I just hold back. But life, it's an everyday struggle, and you have to just hold on. You know?
Said, I try my best. That is important. I did my best. There isn't much more I could do. That's all you can do is your best. And what's in your control. have control over this? To what degree do I have control? I'm going to try my best, and whatever is within my control, I'll address that. So you can only try your best. He sounds like a really good one.
So, yeah. I'm sorry. So, my name is Chad, Dr. Aniki, right? So, yes. Pardon, what is? Anyikwa, Dr. Anyikwa. Yes. So I'm from Jamaica, and there's a lot of crime in Jamaica, and those who commit the crime, they're younger boys, and their teens, and I think they are victims of not being from good homes. When I say good home, when I say not from good homes, either the father isn't there, or if the father is there, there is a constant conflict in the home, and they grow up not knowing love. And I think year after year, the expectation is that the police and the government will correct the problems. But I think it starts with us as people who are married or are in relationships, for us to invest in, I think, the most important asset that we have, which is our marriage and in our spouses. So your time with us today, I think, is so important.
Those kids who are committing crime, guess what? They grow up and they have relationships. And they're bringing, think about it, relationship. So you and I get together, I'm bringing my baggage, everything from childhood, all my experiences, good or bad. You're bringing yours, and then we have either these two big old suitcases, and start unpacking. And when they start unpacking, you realize, whoa, a lot of stuff in that bag. I can't deal with it. So here they're entering relationships, and they don't know how to have a good relationship because they never saw it. Remember that role modeling I told you about? That you're a role model. They're watching you. A lot of times parents will say to me, oh, but they don't know that we fight in our bedroom in private. I'm like, really? Those kids know a lot more than you think. They know a whole lot more than you think. So, it's hard raising kids today. I'm telling you, I'm glad I'm not raising them, just because of what's going on in the world. Social media, public school, my goodness. So what I say to parents, be genuine. When I was growing up as a kid, they would hide everything from us. Don't hide anything, because they're going to learn it out there, and you want them to learn the right thing. Have an open relationship where they can talk. When the times that were really good with me and my kids was when I would pick them up after school. They're hostage in the car. They can't go anywhere. So I hold them hostage. Tell me about school. What happened? I used to tell them that I have eyes in the back of my head. Even recently, my daughter said, Mom, I really thought you had, because I knew everything that was going on. Because get to know other parents. Other parent, I would say, Palmer, did Carl get homework? Charles said he didn't get any. Let me go check. Yes, they have homework. Charles, you have homework. I told you I have eyes in the back of my head. So just be real with them. Don't shut them down. If they want to spend some time with you, take the time and spend with them. I remember my son, when, I was working. I'm working and running for his birthday. I don't remember which birthday it was. Maybe 9th birthday, 10th birthday. All he wanted was a remote control car, which was like $9.99. But me, out of guilt, I don't spend enough time with them. I went and bought, this was really for me. I went to Toys R Us, and I'll never forget it. I'm sorry I took it back because I really wanted it. It was a radio, a radio cassette player in the shape of a Coca-Cola something. I don't remember. but it was really cute. I loved it. And I spent like $99 for it, as opposed to $9.99 for the car. So I wrapped it up and I had him open. And I'm waiting for the excitement, and he opened it and he's like, oh, this is nice, Mom. Oh, you don't like it? Don't you know what it is? It can play your cassettes. Yeah, it's nice. I'm like, you don't look like you. Yeah, it's okay. I said, I tell you what. Okay, let's go to Toys R Us. Come pick out what you want. I got back $80-something in my pocket. All he wanted was a car. So I'm just telling you, they don't want much. They really don't want much. Love and time. Well, you don't have to tell them those things. I'm talking open in terms of what's going on in today. It all depends on you. It's like, what do you want to know? Oh, yeah. You can't present yourself as perfect. So you have, I mean, use your judgment. You know, you can use your. When my kids would come to me like, "What does this mean?" I would say, "You know what? I don't know either. Let's go find out together." You see what I'm saying? So them knowing how old you were when you did so and so is not important. You see what I'm saying? That's that's not important.
There's something that I need to point out, and this is a real life scenario where I've known of quite a number, couple of parents that were very, very strict. When I say strict, to the extreme, because you can be strict, but you gotta have some little bit flexibility. And those kids turned out they were so strict with them growing up, and now when they grow up and got a chance, them bust out can be. And the ones like myself, where my mom wasn't too strict on me, but at the same time she had control. It's different. So, you gotta know how tight to hold and when to let go.
And unfortunately, a lot of that, among Caribbean parents, that's part of the problem. And I say to the kids who will come and see me, but don't blame them, because that's really how they grew up. So it's understanding that and recognizing that you can do better. I tell you, traveling is a heck of a thing. I'm glad I came here at 13, 14? Man, all they had to do was look, okay. I remember my father beating my sister because she was walking home with a boy. She wasn't walking with the boy. He lived in the same direction. They just happened to be walking together. She got a beating. She got a beating. For what? The strict parenting. So that's not good. And what they're going to do is climb out the window or do whatever it is and do things that you don't want them to do. So you might just be open with them. Doesn't mean you don't have rules. You still have rules. As a matter of fact, I used to ask my kids sometimes, I think it's because I was a social worker, because I remember saying to my son, you should be glad I'm a social worker. Because I don't want the newspaper, New York Times, social work mother did this. I'm coming to, so I would say, okay, so what kind of you're going to get punished. What kind of punishment do you think I should give you? Or do you think you should give yourself? And they would give harsher punishments than I would. It's like, oh, you sure? 2 weeks? Okay. And then I'll sometimes be nice and say, okay, I'll give you one. Like, so I gave a gift. I wasn't even going to give that much. Yes, Sylvia.
when I got him, he was coming from a difficult place, and I wound up with him. But what's wonderful about him is that he's away at school, and of course he's meeting all kinds of people, all kinds of ideologies, all kinds of things. But what's wonderful is that he'll come back and want to have a conversation with me. And we would speak for hours about the issue or whatever it is, but he has a soft place to land. He knows that he's not just hearing things from other people. He's actually coming home and hearing what we think or how we see it, and actually having dialogue about some of those issues that he's coming across. I mean, all kinds of things like evolution, all kinds of things. And it's amazing how he comes back home. He calls me and he'll talk to me on the phone for 45 minutes. Now, that did not happen when he was living at home. There was a lot of issues when he was living at home, but he's away and he comes back home to find out, or to discuss the things that he's hearing about. So he's not hearing everything on one side, he's hearing both sides, and he's making good decisions. Oh yes, all kinds of topics. It's like, oh my gosh. Really? So it's amazing because even today he called and he wanted to talk about certain things, and it's amazing because he's talking to his friends and they're having a different type of conversation, but at the same time he comes back to me and he says, "So Grandma, this is what I'm thinking about." But I know he's having other conversations, so I'll let him talk and I listen, and then I'll ask questions, and I ask really good questions, like so. He's 20. Yeah, he's 20. So. Oh. I say that it's so important that when you're growing them up, that they can come to you and they have a soft place to land, and that you always listen. Because when he was growing up, he got into trouble a lot. The school called me a lot. There was a lot of issues, but we had a place where we would sit down and have our place to talk. So we had our table. I said, okay, meet me. In 5 minutes, we're going to sit and talk. And that's where we apologize to each other. That's where we set rules. That's when we, clarify what happened. That's where we have all that conversation. So that spot, he knows. I mean, he came home. He came home from school the other day, and, he was doing something or whatever. I said, okay, we're going to meet at this spot. And he came with his head hanging down, and he already knew we were going to have a conversation. But the conversation, I allowed him to speak. I spoke. We looked at both issues. Sometimes he was right. Sometimes he wasn't. Sometimes he was partially right. Sometimes I was partially right. Sometimes I was partially wrong. So so he knows that we can have honest conversation. And so we still do that to this day. But it's amazing how he still comes to me and talks to me. He talks to me more than I think my kids. Like my kids are in their 30s as well. And yeah, I think I learned a lot along the way. I learned a lot along the way, so yeah. But it's amazing how the time that I gave him growing up, because he was coming from a difficult situation, and the fact that I gave him all that extra time, and got him involved in a lot of things and talked positive things into him. And when he came, he was 9, and by the time he was 12, he was baptized, which was amazing. So I'm very happy that he's able to do that. That doesn't mean that he doesn't do anything wrong. Oh my goodness. But he gives me great comfort that in the fact that I know what he's thinking, and I can have some input in that. So I appreciate that.
Beautiful. Good job. 20-year-old coming to grandma, that's rare. Okay, folks.
I read an article this week that said some research was done, and this lady was asking some people, what percentage do you think children behave badly with their mothers than they do with other people? And they were guessing, and they kept guessing numbers under 100. And she said, it's more than 100. And the guy said, how could it be more than 100? It has to stop at 100. And she said, well, the research said 800% children behave badly with their mothers than they do with anybody else. And I've always wondered, I have small children, well, smallish, why is it that they can behave, for the most part, when you're in public, but when you're at home, they tear the whole place up and act like they have no home training, no ears, no nothing. And I've always heard other parents say, well, it's better that they do that than they embarrass you in public and behave well at home. But anyway, what they found from that research was that the reason, well, this is what they say, the reason why children are prone to behaving so terribly around their mothers is because they know that mom is their safe space. And that is the place, that is the person that they can totally let go around, where they can completely 100% be themselves and just let it all out, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because it's mom, and mom is the one person that will understand you and love you and accept you for the way you are. So I just wanted to give a little encouragement to anybody who might be experiencing that kind of situation where your children become little hell raisers when you have them by yourselves. It's because they feel comfortable and safe with you. And that's a good thing if your children are comfortable being themselves with you.
Yeah, that's good. But we want to also encourage positivity. So if you have to, I used to have little like reward calendar. If you do A, B, C, D 7 days, it's like 25 cents per day. No big. It's about. It's not bribing. It's about. It's teaching. You know, behavior consequence and yeah, and it's about you do this, there's something you get back, and so it's something that you can talk to them about. Okay, guys, I see that we're trying to do this and it's not working. Let them take part in the solution. So how do you think we can do this? Because when it's like in business. If you have the employees have buy-in into whatever it is that you're doing, they're going to want to do it. If the kids think that they have a part in that solution, that's why I say they have power too. They think they'll do it. So it's not about going around saying, I'm the parent. We have to really work together. We have to really work together, and it does work. Let them have buy-in in the solution. It will work. Criticism, defensiveness, contempt, and stonewall.
Before she answers that, let me clarify that what I'm talking about is not disrespect. I am talking about them being children, just, leaving their stuff here, not doing this homework, just being kids. Nothing about them being rude or, disrespectful to their parents. No, that's not what I was talking about.
That's good. It's not because disrespect is not allowed. Doesn't. And again? Oh, when a child disrespects you, it didn't start when they started disrespecting you. It started earlier. So when you're parenting a child, you've got to be consistent in how you train them. They don't just they don't just grow up and start disrespecting you. It started earlier. And I would sit them down and say, wait a minute, I'm seeing a change in you. What's going on? Talk to them. I'm seeing some, and I'm not liking this. And this is not you, because that's how I would wait. Something else is, talk to me, what's going on?
We grow with children, each of them going to church. I know that they are all adults. Only one goes to church. And I don't know if she's still going, but I don't know. We raised them in the church, and they have all departed. I will go to someone and say, all right, let us have the kids for church, only the very small ones. And it's just about two of them right now who would come. And I have to be on my daughter's case, saying, what's going on? Why on every Saturday you can't find time for everything else, but you can't just bring the child come? They all grew up in the church and the choir doing everything. I know church is not to them.
I know. And it's a universal problem. It's a, yes, it's a universal. But you know what? They'll come back. It's just life. They'll come back.
Always so busy with things that it goes bust and it's on us. And they still not understanding.
They
I
understand.
talk
But
to them calmly. I try everything. I say, not for me, but make mommy happy. Make her happy. It's all about, I don't know what it is.
it is a universal problem. All I can say is you've raised them a certain way. It didn't leave them. It's still there. And one day you'll be surprised. They'll return.
I'm praying for that.
Yeah.
I'm praying for
Just
that.
keep praying. It happens to the best of us. Right? And living in this society, it's not like growing up in Jamaica where you didn't have a. Here, oh my goodness, there's so many. Huh? Yeah, but they're here. They're here. That's what I'm. This is a whole different culture. I mean, there's so many distractions. There's so much to do. All the different cultures living in. Think about all of that. They're exposed to so much. They're lost. Okay, well that's a whole different topic. With you heard me say that a lot of these mothers they're raising their kids on tablets and because it's the babysitter. It's the new babysitter.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's
Even
the
when
babysitter
even when she's with us for the weekend, I have to take the tablet away.
because that's what she knows. But you should take the tablet away. Don't
it
do
away.
what your daughter does.
I take it away and I have her and she's there.
Play-
And she cry for the tablet.
No, but
I
replace
say, make she
it.
cry.
No, don't just
An
take it
hour.
away.
Yeah, I take
But,
it away,
you know,
but I give her something.
give her something
I try
else.
to get her involved in other things. You know?
But
she-
do it with her. It's
Yes.
It's not that easy. She's accustomed to this now. You can't just take it away, because she's not gonna want to come visit you. You're mean. So no, but replace it with kids. You never take away. Just you sort of shift it so they don't even know, and start doing something else with them before you know it. It's like, oh, they didn't even remember they didn't have the tablet. It's strategic. It's being strategic. Right. Yeah. What did she do? looking for the time.
You know, Qatar doing something else.
She was
real.
something else?
Yes.
Yeah, but don't forget, she's attached to this thing. Talk about connection. That's a relationship right there. She has a with that tablet. And it's very much addictive. And it's sad because that's what young parents are using to babysit their kids. I'm sorry to say.
Dr. Anyikwa, quick question. For those of us who have questions beyond this, is there someone, do you have a contact number or an address or?
I don't think so.
No? All right, so Dr. Anyikwa, on behalf of Margate SDA, we would like to thank you again for your time. And no problem. And you're always a friend of the church. Always. Amen. Yeah, well.
All right. Thank you, Doc.